Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Calls. We are back after an unexpected week off. The settings are quite different if you can't already tell. I've been in a mad rush to try and get the show back live. So please let me know how the audio quality is, the video quality, all of that. Working with a pretty skeleton setup. Considering I had about 2 days to try and rebuild everything after purchasing a new computer out of necessity, unfortunately. I hope you had a fantastic Cognizant Classic. Had all of the Joe Highsmith. So please jump in chat. Let me know how your past 2 weeks have been, how Mexico went, and then, of course, how the Cognizant Classic just went, and any other success that you've had. And as we turn our attention to the third signature event of the season, the Arnold Palmer, or is it fourth? Third or fourth? Century, Pebble, Genesis, and now the Arnold Palmer. So fourth signature event of the year. Would love to hear your all's thoughts on the upcoming week. So let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where normally I post research every Monday regarding the tournament, some course information, some patterns of previous winners and players in the field that week who share those patterns. Not sure I'll get to that this week, considering I'm still trying to get everything set up on the back end here for the show. But normally, if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contests I play. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see those pieces of information, give me a follow over at X. And then finally, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. Really is a wonderful way to start your week of preparation. Can't recommend it enough. And considering I had the unexpected misfortunes of last week, hopefully you went over there and subscribed to his article to get you prepared for the Cognizant Classic last week. If you haven't done that, you really are missing out. Make sure you're doing that. And then go follow him over on social media. Show him some support. Lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. Please, I do need to hear from you all how the audio quality, the visual quality is on this new setup. And then, moving forward for the Arnold Palmer. Who do you think is the favorite? Is it Scotty? Is it somebody else? How do you think the course is going to play? Who are you keeping your eye on? And of course, I want to hear about any success that you had regarding the Cognizant Classic, Mexico, all of that. So with that out of the way, let's do our initial research for the 2025 Arnold Palmer Invitational. And we are hopefully going to transition here. I think that has it. And please let me know if it hasn't, but I think that's correctly transitioned here to the GCSA tournament fact sheet, where we normally start on a Sunday evening. We are in Orlando, Florida, at Bay Hill Club and Lodge, the historic host of the Arnold Palmer Invitational. The Bay Hill Club and Lodge was first, designed by Dick Wilson in 1961. Arnold Palmer, the tournament namesake, came in and renovated it in 2009. A little bit of changes from last year's tournament. The bunker on 17 was removed, turned into a grass bank. Let's see. That's the biggest change, it looks like, in terms of actual course layout. Bay Hill is a long par 72, so 4 par 3s, 4 par 5s. measuring almost 7,500 yards, just over 7,460 yards on the scorecard, 7,466 to be exact. We are on Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens, and those greens are seen fairly common on the PGA Tour. Still have my notes here. In terms of Tiff Eagle Bermuda, Bay Hill, which are some of the fastest greens around. Kapalua at the Century also has Tiff Eagle Bermuda. PGA National, where we were last week, has Tiff Eagle Bermuda. Port Royal, which we don't get the putting data for since that is the host of the Bermuda Championship in the fall. We don't get ShotLink data from there, but they have Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens. And, of course, RSM, Sea Island, has Tiff Eagle Bermuda. So, several courses with Tiff Eagle Bermuda on the PGA Tour. Most of those places, with the exception of Kapalua and maybe Port Royal, host of the Bermuda, most of those places are faster lightning Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens. So we might do some deep dive into that more than likely tomorrow. We might take a look at it tonight as well. But we are on Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens. The rough and fairways are this overseed, and there was a lot of talk about that, especially last Thursday when Jake Knapp shot his 59, how it made PGA National a lot easier. I do think that Bay Hill is still going to be a pretty stern test. It always is, due to its length and the water in play. There's 9 holes with water in play at Bay Hill. The greens are actually pretty darn large, 7,500 square feet. Some of the largest greens we've had on tour, third largest. I'm sorry, no, that's total yardage. These are the second largest greens. Bay Hill and then Kapalua were the largest greens. So large, extremely large greens here at Bay Hill. A little bit of fairway, 31 acres, but they are fairly skinny. In some places, you see the average fairway width 30 yards. If players are not in the fairway, the rough is pretty difficult. It says 3 inches here. It's been as much as 4 or 4.5 in years past. Might be an indication that they have cut it back a little bit. But very large greens, several bunkers, 84 bunkers around Bay Hill. Again, 9 holes with water in play. So there's a look at Bay Hill in terms of a GCSA tournament fact sheet standpoint. Nothing to do with Architect. Of course, this is an Arnold Palmer design. We do not have Arnold Palmer in Fantasy National as an architect. So nothing to do with that. But the main takeaways here, very long, par 72, Tiff Eagle, very fast, lightning even, Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens, large Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens. A lot of water in play, as you would expect with the course in Florida. And the fairway width, I think this is a little bit misleading. I think it can play narrow at times, but the average fairway width is 30 yards. Okay, so there's a look at the GCSA tournament fact sheet. We're going to go over to Fantasy National, and again, this is just full transparency on my end because I have been so busy trying to get this show off the ground with this new setup here that I don't know the precise Aeon Swing 10 or any of that after the Cognizant Classic from last week. So all I have to go on is what is listed in Fantasy National at the moment for the Arnold Palmer. So if any of these players are not in the field, again, just forgive me. I have not had a chance to confirm all of this as I've been trying to get the setup, the stream off the ground. But we're going to take a look at the players who have played the best so far early on in 2025. This being a signature event, I do believe this is a cut very similar to the Genesis, where it is top 50 and ties anybody within 10 shots of the lead a Masters cut. I believe that is the case this week. Your top performers in the field so far early on in 2025: Sepp Straka, Justin Thomas, Hideki, Scotty Scheffler, Rory, Colin Morikawa, Alex Smalley, Mav McNeely, Patrick Cantlay, and Nick Taylor. Hey, good evening, Derek. Thanks for jumping into chat. Very much appreciated. You did not miss videos last week, as there were no videos last week. I had to take a very unexpected week off because my computer died. The computer completely crashed. That is why you've got much different settings and a different layout here from me. The much more zoomed in spot on me here. I'm sure the background is different from videos past. Since you are in chat, I'm going to ask how the audio quality, the visual quality is. Is it fine? Is it too loud? Too quiet? Because I'm working on a skeleton setup here after having to purchase a new computer and rushing through trying to get everything set up again for tonight. Had a terrible DFS week, so I hope, again, with no computer since it crashed last week, I just was off. I did not make any wagers, didn't play any DFS. I was shut off from the world, basically, with no computer. So I hate to hear that you had a bad week. We're going to try and turn it around. Do remember, this is a double tournament week. The API, obviously the main focal point for the PGA Tour with all the big stars, but we do have an alternate field event in Puerto Rico. And as long as I have everything, going after tonight, we're going to have a full slate of shows tonight, Monday, and Wednesday for the API, and then Tuesday night will be dedicated entirely to the Puerto Rico Open. But I appreciate you jumping in chat. I appreciate that the quality, or it seems like it's going well on your end in terms of visual and audio, and appreciate that you're back this evening. So yeah, it's been one of those weeks where you just shrug your shoulders and move on, because life happens. Sucks, but life happens. So anyway, there's a look at the top 10 in terms of performance so far early on in 2025. We can go ahead and take a look at long course, considering we know that the Arnold Palmer and Bay Hill is close to 7,500 yards. So in the... Well, I should probably keep that checked. 2024, that should be enough rounds. Yeah, absolutely. So in the past 13 or so months, going back to last year's century, your top performers on long courses have been Rory, Xander, who apparently is in the field this week. I guess he is coming back from his injury. Again, I feel like I am so out of the loop, having been away for a week. But I guess Xander is back in the field this week. Scotty, Taylor Pendrith, Hideki, Colin Morikawa, Ludwig, Thomas Dietrich, Corey Connors, and Russell Henley. All right, let's go ahead and go to the course breakdown here in Fantasy National for Bay Hill Club and Lodge. Very difficult course, or it has been in years past. The par fives, the 4 par fives, have generally been the easiest or the best ways to score here at Bay Hill. Easiest hole being a very short par 5, just over 500 yards, playing a half a shot under par. We have a quarter of a shot under par, 15 hundredths, 2 tenths, but all of them are the par 5s. And very quickly you get to around par. 600ths, 300ths. There's par right there. So 13th. So what's this? The sixth most easiest hole. So 18, 17, 16, 15. That's 4, 14, and 13. Yes, the sixth easiest hole is where par falls. This is a very, very difficult course, Bay Hill. The most difficult hole, the finishing par 4 18th, placed at 3/10 of a shot, 2/10, 2/10, quarter of a shot, 2/10. I mean, lots of areas where bogeys creep in. Not a whole lot of double bogeys though, other than the finishing 18th, but lots of bogeys around Bay Hill, and Bay Hill is long. Just taking a quick gander at these par 4s, 461. 460, 480, 467, 458. Lots of long par 4s, and these par 3s are gargantuan. 221, 215, 199 is the shortest. 231. Lots of long, difficult par 3s as well. Not a whole lot of eagles other than the short par 5, 16th. But the par 5s do yield birdies at a decent rate. We scroll down and take a look at strokes gained by shot type. This is a ball striking course. Of course, people or players that are finishing in the top 10 are going to be making putts. But this is a ball striking course generally. But the entire aspect of a player's game is going to be tested, much like at Torrey Pines. This course is long, it's difficult, so around the green is going to matter a little bit. Off the tee, outweighing that just a touch. Well, we move to the top 5s. Putting starts to try to creep up on the approach a little bit, and then for your winners, as you would expect, they're making putts, but consistently off the tee is outweighing the around the green, giving this a ball striking feel. Don't mistake though, around the green is going to matter a little bit this week. Even though these greens are extremely large, they are difficult to hit, or at least in theory they are difficult to hit with how difficult the course plays. Average strokes gained by hole by par. Again, you would expect professionals to take advantage of par 5s. They have to take advantage of the par 5s. It's the best scoring opportunities around Bay Hill. It's a little surprising to see the par 3s lag for your top 10s. You move to the top 5s, still the par 3s lagging quite a bit there. And then for your winners, they are playing the par 3s really well around Bay Hill. But it is a stark contrast, even from the winners to the top 5s, just how much par 3s drop. So lots of emphasis in the par 5s. Probably a lot of emphasis in these long par 4s, which we'll get to the course composition here momentarily. I am a little surprised that these par 3s aren't more important, but really you take a look, 2/10, 1500ths, 600ths. The easiest par 3 still plays over par. 231 plays a 2/10 of a shot over par. So almost everybody is struggling on these par 3s. That's probably what's explaining the lack here. If a player gets 4 3s on the par 3s in a day, they're making up a lot of shots, would be my guess. Because there are not a lot of birdies around these par 3s. Okay, speaking of that whole composition that I was talking about, the par 3s, very long. This is a little deceptive. You have one that is from 175 to 200. In fact, that is at 199. So you could easily see that going over 200 if they move tees and pins around. 2 from 200 to 225. 1 extremely long par 3 that's measuring 231. A couple of shorter par 4s, not necessarily drivable, but shorter. 382 placed right at par. 390 placed slightly over par. A couple of short, not drivable, but short par 4s. 3 in the 400 to 450 range, but half of your par 4s around Bay Hill fall from 450 to 500. So my guess is when we go into the data dive tomorrow night, that is going to be where the majority of the strokes in par 4s fall. But we'll really take a look at that more in depth tomorrow. And then the par fives, we have the one very short par five at 511, and then all three other par fives fall between 550 and 600. 574, 555, which probably could play under 550 some, and then 590. Looking at approach shot distribution, much like Torrey Pines, long iron play is mandatory around Bay Hill just due to the length of the golf course. We see that 29%, I'm rounding up a little bit, 29% of the approach shots come from 200 plus, which would explain Kurt Kitayama winning a couple of years ago and how good he is with his long irons. So a lot of 200 plus approaches. Players like Rory, Scotty might be pushing it. You do have a few shorter par fours. Of course, the 390, 382, 400. You have a 434. So there are a few shorter ones that might provide a wedge opportunity for some players. But more often than not, we're going to be looking at 200 plus proximity this week, I believe. And speaking to the difficulty of Bay Hill, the historic cut line, which won't be this year. Yes, there is a cut at Bay Hill, but it is the Masters cut, top 50 and ties, and then anybody within 10 shots. So we saw that play, at the Genesis, where something ridiculous like +5 or +6 was the cut. It's going to be pretty high. But even when this was a full field or more of a full field event, the cut was hovering in this +3 area. You had a couple +2s, +4s, got up to +5 a couple times. Only once was it ever under par as a cut. That just explains the difficulty of Bay Hill. Scoring distribution. About the same amount of birdies there are bogeys. There's a few more birdies lying around. But you see this doubles bar is visible clearly, and not very many eagles. So a lot more scores over par than under par yields to a difficult tournament. And we also see so many approach shots from 200 plus because some players do lay back a little bit off the tee because they know how difficult the rough usually is around Bay Hill. So you might see more 3-woods than drivers despite the length of the course. Driving accuracy here is slightly higher, actually moderately higher than the average tour event, 64 versus 62. But you see the distance, much less. Players really emphasize being in the fairway here at Bay Hill. As I was mentioning, these greens, despite their size, despite being the second largest greens so far on the PGA Tour this season, Kapalua being the largest, and then now Bay Hill being second, despite the size of these greens, you see how difficult they are to hit, just over 60%, whereas the PGA average is about 66%. So greens are not easy. Scrambling is roughly PGA Tour average here. Not necessarily the easiest, but not most difficult scramble. A lot of 3-putts, again, due to the size of the greens and the fact that, I'm going to skip forward just a little bit, these greens are generally kept really fast. Now, we had a couple rounds of average in 2023 when the winds really picked up. But you can see lightning and fast last year and for years, and I mean years before that, they were lightning. I mean, they keep these greens very, very fast. So 3 putts per round are 3 putts in a round are very common here, and that might be something we want to look at. We talked about distance, and lastly, proximity. Again, due to the difficulty and due to the size of the greens, proximity, if you do hit the green in regulation, further away than the average tour event. There is a look at Bay Hill in terms of a scorecard and graphical view. We'll now go back to the players in the field this week. I'm going to keep the same 2024 and 2025 filter on, But instead of looking at long courses, we're not going to look at difficult. Bay Hill has been difficult majority of the time. It had one round of average last year, a couple rounds of average in 2023, but before a lot of some of the renovations, it wasn't really that easy. Arnold Palmer came in and really toughened this place up starting in 2020. So is Victor Hovland playing? I believe so. Unless there's an injury, which again, I'm just being transparent here. I don't know anything of the Aeon Swing 10. I don't know of any injuries, considering from the moment I purchased this new computer, Derek, I've been just gung-ho on trying to get my show back up and running. So I've been out of the loop in that regard. So as far as I know, he is listed in the field for what it is worth. We'll take a look at performance when rounds have been difficult relative to par. Going back to the beginning of 2024, your top performers are Scotty, Xander, Rory, Russell Henley, Ludwig Aubert, Akshay Bhatia, Colin Morikawa, Billy Horschel, Andrew Novak, Seabez, and Corey Connors. Again, Derek, if you know that some of these players aren't in the field or they didn't make it in the Aeon Swing 5 or Swing 10 or anything like that, just let me know, because I haven't had a chance to confirm all that, having been working on some background stuff, essentially trying to get my stream up and running. But there you go. There's a look at your top performers when rounds have been difficult dating back to the beginning of last year. We took a look at long courses. Now we'll take a look at some strokes gained metrics. We're going to start with off the tee. It is a decent importance at Bay Hill. And I'm actually going to use off the tee when it's difficult. Bay Hill can play like a major sometimes. You've seen guys play, we saw it in the breakdown, how distance is much less here than the average tour event because players just place an absolute premium on trying to be in the fairway, much like a lot of the majors. So in that regard, your top off the tee performers in the field this week when rounds have been difficult: Rory, Ludwig Aubert, Xander, Minwoo Lee, Colin Morikawa, Sahith Theegala, Akshay Bhatia, Sam Burns, Charlie Hoffman, and Ben On. And I think I'm probably going to use this filter the majority of the time this week, unless I see something tomorrow in terms of wind finder, the forecast, anything like that just completely suggests that it's going to be average, because I don't think this will be easy. I really don't. So unless I see or hear something contrary to what has been the usual in years past, my guess is I'm going to default to this difficult relative to par filter most of this week. Having said that, I don't like looking at that in terms of approach. I just like looking at approach standard on how well a player has been doing lately. So in 2025, just going back to this year's century, your top iron players in the field this week: Justin Thomas, JJ Spawn, who had a very solid Cognizant Classic, Scotty, Nick Taylor, Johnny Vegas, Mav McNeely, Nikolai Højgaard, Sepp Straka, Tommy Fleetwood, and Colin Morikawa. Don't want to ignore around the green. And I will probably use this difficult relative to par. So your top around the green players when rounds have been difficult: Davis Thompson, Hideki, Seabez, Rory, Scotty, Siwoo Kim, Denny McCarthy, Max Homa, Sam Burns, Jaeger, and Nick Taylor. And then lastly, I don't think I'm going to use, the more I thought about it as I was talking through some of the course breakdown, I think I'm just going to look at Fast and Lightning Bermuda to start until I really have the chance to dig in this week into a lot of the data regarding Bay Hill and PGA National and Sea Island and see how well these players putt on these specific Tiff Eagle Bermuda. I think I'm just going to go with Fast and Lightning Bermuda, just especially in an initial research look. So in the past couple years, going back to the beginning of 2023, your top putters on Fast and Lightning Bermuda have been Mav McNeely, Ben Griffin, Sahith Theegala, Sam Burns, Matt Fitzpatrick, Wyndham Clark, Tommy Fleetwood, Xander, Taylor Moore, and Adam Schenk. All right, I will remove those filters. We'll take a look at a couple of things here. I don't want to get too involved with it because we go into a lot tomorrow in the Data Dive show. With that said, we'll take a look at a couple of things here. Let's take a look at 200 plus proximity, considering that was such an elevated importance, at least in years past. You can see majority of approach shots 200 plus here at Bay Hill. So your top 200 plus proximity players in the field this week. Do we have enough data for this year? Yeah, probably. It's a little small of a sample size, but so far in 2025, your top 200 plus prox players: Akshay Bhatia, Max Grazerman, Charlie Hoffman, Denny McCarthy, Nikolai Højgaard, Adam Scott, Ludwig Aubert, Tony Finau, Brian Campbell, who won Mexico, Christopher Ventura, and Joel Damon. And then the only other thing we're going to take a look at tonight is par fives. Again, we're mainly focused on these two here, considering there's one on the scorecard at 511, and then 3 of the 4 par fives measure 550 to 600, the longest being 590. So it might creep into the 600, but we're mainly wanting to look at these two here. With that said, I'm going to sort on total par fives. So your top par 5 performers, kind of, that we're wanting to look at: Taylor Moore, 4th and 7th in this field. Normally you would say Adam Scott is 2nd, but look, he's kind of, 21st and 9th is good, but it's not elite like a Taylor Pendrith, who is 2nd and 7th. You look at Lee Hodges, who's 1st on the 500 to 550, but rather mediocre in this field in terms of 550 to 600, so something to be aware of. So the players really that at least stand out to start on these par fives, we've got Taylor Moore, 4th and 7th, Taylor Pendrith, 2nd and 7th. Aubert probably deserves an honorable mention here, 16th and 4th. Hideki is 15th in both, solid. Colin Morikawa, 12th and 9th. Anyone else here that really stands out? Not really. You see players like Max Grazerman, really good in one and then mediocre in another. Or you got someone like Cam Young, who's top 25 in both, but that doesn't, in a smaller field of, what do we have, 80, 82 players, top 25 isn't as stellar as it would be in a full field event. So those are the names that really jump off the page to start. Taylor Moore, Pendrith, honorable mention to Aubert, honorable mention to Hideki being top 15 in both. Morikawa stands out a little bit. And the last thing we're going to do, unfortunately, like I said, I've been so caught up in just trying to get my show off the ground with this new setup and PC and all that stuff. Last thing we're going to take a look at, because I don't have anything with Microsoft Excel tonight, is tournament history and how a player has performed at Bay Hill in the last 5 years. Now remember, back in 2023 and before, it was an invitational, so it still wasn't a full field event, but you still had, 100 and something players. Only last year did you have just a minimal amount of cut. So in terms of players who have played well at Bay Hill, Scotty always comes to mind. He has won twice in the past 3 years. The 1 year he didn't, I believe this was Kitayama in 2023. Scotty has been very good around Bay Hill. Rory's been pretty solid. Fairly, I can't say middling. He was a top 25 last year. But he does have a runner-up, another top 5, another top 10. But he doesn't have any wins recently at Bay Hill. Sung Jae has played very well around Bay Hill. Just been very consistent. He does have a third, but he's just, right around top 20 every year here. Max Homa has been very good at Bay Hill, although we've seen Max Homa struggle quite a bit to start 2025. So if he didn't play well out in California, makes you think maybe he might have some issues here. Connors has been very good. That makes a lot of sense, especially because he keeps the ball in front of him. Not the longest player, but very, very straight. Keeps the ball in the fairway. Very good iron player. It makes a lot of sense. Fitzpatrick's been very good with the exception of his missed cut last year. Several top 10s and another top 15. Harris English. Keegan's been good around here. A couple of top 10s and another top 15. To your point, Derek, if Victor was playing, Victor has been okay here. He's been kind of boom or bust. He's made the cut every single time. He does have a runner-up and a top 10, but some very subpar performances as well, I would say. Chris Kirk, Zalatoris. Some other players here. Billy Horschel. Runner-up, middling, and then 2 missed cuts. But Bermuda Billy, you always got to think about Bermuda Billy. Speaking of, looking at Sam Burns. Sam Burns has been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde. A couple of missed cuts, top 10, some middling in there. Interesting to see that. Ben On has been pretty solid. Top 10 last year. Had to withdraw a couple years ago. Made the cut 2 prior times. Patrick Rogers he's been consistently okay here. So there's a look at some of the players who have played Bay Hill pretty well. And then the other end of the spectrum, players who have not been good at Bay Hill. Surprisingly, Sepp Straka hasn't played well here. 4 missed cuts, and then, a very poor performance last year. Lucas Glover has been pretty shaky around here. Justin Rose, 0 for 4. You mentioned Spawn. Spawn, been not the best around here. I don't hate the idea because of his irons, but he's actually been negative in terms of strokes gained at Bay Hill the past 5 years. Some other players have struggled. This does not feel like a great JT Poston fit, so it makes a lot of sense to see him without a lot of success here. Adam Hadwin, much the same. I wouldn't have said much for Brian Harmon either, but Brian Harmon did top 15 this last year, to his credit. Mav McNeely, the top putter on Fast and Lightning Bermuda, has struggled here. Some others, Nikolai Højgaard 0 for 2. Smalley 1 for 2. Aaron Rye 1 for 2. McCarthy has made the cut, but pretty poor. Cam Davis, 3 missed cuts and then did top 20 last year. Tommy, top 10, top 20, and then 3 really poor performances. So there's a look at some of the players who have not played well around Bay Hill. Again, quite a bit of a shorter show. I apologize. I don't have anything for Microsoft Excel tonight. I will have some Excel data for you all tomorrow for the Data Dive show. But honestly, I've just spent all of my time trying to set up my stream to have something for you all after having to purchase a new computer when mine died last Sunday. But thanks to Derek for jumping in the chat. I don't like hearing that you didn't have any success for the Cognizant Classic. I hope your Mexico Open went well. And we're going to try and turn it around for the first double tournament week of 2025 with the Arnold Palmer and the Puerto Rico Open. So again, just a quick reminder, we've got the Arnold Palmer shows tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday on its normal schedule. Tuesday night will be entirely devoted to the Puerto Rico Open. We're going to do the research. We're going to do the data dive, and we're going to do DFS all in one night for the alternate field event this week. I'm pretty sure it's Puerto Rico. It might be something else, but I'm pretty sure it's Puerto Rico. So we're going to have an entire night devoted to the alternate field event as well. Need to do more lineups so I have more permutations. Yes and no. That certainly can help. It's all about your budget. It really is. I'm fortunate enough that I play several lineups because I do want several different combinations. But really, you got to find your Joe Highsmith. You got to find your Brian Campbell. You got to find the player, and I'm not saying they have to win, but you have to find the guy that's fairly unique, that does really, really well. That's what you're looking for, and we're gonna try to find that this week for both tournaments. So thanks again to you, Derek, for jumping in chat. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. Again, please let me know. Derek mentioned that the audio and visual quality was up to par. Please let me know in the comments how the quality was on your end. I kind of rushed trying to get something set up for tonight, so I want to make sure the quality is still good for you, the viewers. Thanks again for all the support. Love what I do, taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, trying to give you a statistician's view of what he sees, trying to help Saul win a little bit of money in the process. We're going to try to make it a big week, 2 tournaments this week. Thanks again for all of the wagers that you made this past week for the Cognizant Classic, for all the DFS contests you played this past week for the Cognizant Classic. And until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.